welcome you once again to the AUDL Championship Weekend in picturesque Montreal. Second game of our semifinal doubleheader features the Toronto Rush, the champs of the East Division, and the Dallas Roughnecks, the South Division champs and the defending AUDL champions. Hi again, everybody. It's great to have you with us with Brian Jones and Chuck Kindred. I am Evan Lepler, and Brian, we saw this matchup a year ago in the semifinals. Dallas took care of business, won by 7 goals. This year we think could be different, in part because of Toronto's defense and their offense with Cam Harris, Andrew Carroll, and these patented rush pull plays.
Well, when you ask Toronto who's the most talented player in Toronto, the conversation starts and usually ends with Cam Harris. He's huge, he's got great length, and a tremendous thrower. He's been really important today. And the other side of the ball, Andrew Carroll played for a long time. Now he's back on the offensive side. He's doing a lot of great things. He's become a more well-rounded player. He's incredibly fast.
Cam Harris did suffer an injury in the East Division Championship game, had a hamstring pull. He is expected to give it a go today. You think they'll try to use him more as a thrower, perhaps with Carroll going long?
I think that's where he's the most strong, and especially if the other team doesn't realize it and doesn't try to test him, he's going to be a dangerous threat with a disc.
Andrew Carroll won a bronze medal with Team Canada in Poland earlier this summer, and everyone on the Rush thinks he could be a game-changing type player. And he's going to have to be, because this Dallas team might be as strong as they were last year. It's a fun debate. The superstars begin with Jimmy Mickle, Chuck.
Yeah, Jimmy Mickle is just a guy, he's larger than life. When you see him standing on the sideline, he looks bigger, faster, stronger than all the other guys, and he's athletic. He's got incredible throws. And, oh, you know, by the way, he can go up and roof just about anybody in the sport. Very intimidating guy. And then, if it isn't bad enough for the opponents, now you got to deal with Kurt Gibson, who might be the best player of this generation. He's the only guy who's come across, you know, Bo Kittredge and consistently come out on top. And I feel like he's just kind of getting up to full speed this year. He had an injury earlier in the season, and he's really playing into shape. And
as good as Jimmy and Kurt have been, a lot of people think Dylan Freechild is actually the best player in the world right now here in August of 2017.
I know I don't think it's ever been a valid argument until this year, but when he is on, he does things that no one else is really doing, and he just seems to really destroy an entire defense. There's just nothing you can do that's going to bother him. He's got great speed, he's got incredible brakes, great touch, and oh, by the way, he spikes pretty hard, so that's nice.
He's an intense guy. The Dallas Roughnecks trying to go back-to-back to get to the San Francisco FlameThrowers tomorrow. They need to get past the Toronto Rush for the second year in a row. It's Toronto and Dallas, the second game of the night here from Montreal, and the opening pulls coming up. We still have some daylight, but the overhead lights are on here at Claude Robillard Stadium off the edge of downtown Montreal. The Toronto Rush will begin the game on defense, and the Dallas Roughnecks will start the game with Kurt Gibson quarterbacking the O-line. Guys, this Toronto team entered last year a depleted bunch. They were missing several guys because of injuries and absences, but in part because of their youth and the health of Mark Lloyd, they're in a different spot in 2017.
Yeah, it looked like at the beginning of this year, they lose to DC, they go to New York, they pull that one out. Looks like it might be a year that DC is able to finally win the East, but Toronto, still the top dog. They came through, cruised through the playoffs, held off DC, had no problems there, and then now you have Mark Lloyd here on defense. That's a great sign after the knee injury from a couple of years ago.
Jeff Powell, another guy that the Rush did not have against Dallas last year in the semifinals because he served the one-game suspension as a result of the collision with DC's Markham Schaffner. By the way, Dylan Freechild for Dallas was warming up today in Markham's sister's jersey. He was warming up in the Jesse Schaffner National NightWatch top. Kurt Gibson will be picked up by Breton Tan, who's become one of the top handler defenders, and he'll turn 20 this week. Brandon Muffin Malachek to Ben Laurie. Abe Coffin, Thomas Slack, Kurt Gibson, Matt Jackson, and Jimmy Mickle out there on offense for the Roughnecks in the white.
You get to talk so much about Gibson and Mickle, and rightly so, but Ben Laurie may be the best young player coming up in the world right now.
The coaches of the AUDL South Division voted Laurie as the most underrated guy in their division this year. I think his teammates know how good he is.
Yeah, and so many stars in the South, too. I mean, probably the two best teams in the whole league are in the South. Nethercutt is a guy I just wish we could see play this weekend. But plenty of stars for Dallas.
Good opening possession for defense. Not giving Dallas anything obvious. Toronto cutting off all the angles.
It's Lloyd on Mickle. Mario Zlatic with a handler defense on Malachek. That leads to a turnover. Zlatic looking for Powell. Incomplete.
I really thought Powell had that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened at the end of that sprint. He was open, it was out in front of him, he did not lay out. He's a guy who tends to throw his body around.
Certainly surprising that he didn't pull the trigger. A chance to really get this crowd behind him. Now going deep the other way. Mickle shy of the end zone. He'll hit Slack. And just like that, Dallas turns the tide of the opening point for a hold.
Not the start if you want for Toronto. You have a chance at the end zone. Powell streaking. You just have to put that one out in front and hanging. And so far, wind has not been a factor.
It's been a calm day. Really pleasant conditions. Low 70s. Really perfect for the players. Yeah. How about Thomas Slack? The impact he has made as a virtually anonymous presence, just catching goal after goal after goal, playing alongside his teammates.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in the shuffle on the Roughnecks roster. There's so many big names, but I was hanging out with a lot of the Dallas Roughnecks a few weeks ago at the playoffs, and they all talk about Slack as a guy that they really appreciate having on the team who's a difference maker for them in big games.
Well, as much as the Dallas guys talk about Slack, the Toronto guys talk about Carroll. Andrew Carroll came back for the disc, and then Burrell. Wow, a juggle, but he hangs on.
Sigh of relief.
That's what we're talking about with the ball play, so it seems scripted.
It really is for Toronto. Over the years, they've done just such a great job of analyzing what the defense is giving them and then go the other way with it. I think Harris was actually playing for the foul call. Didn't get it, so it's lucky that Carroll was able to come out underneath. That's right.
We've all been there, but it is a lonely feeling when that disc fumbles out of your grasp.
Well, if you're the coach, you're already calling the next line.
Yeah.
They teach you to not, try to be humble and wait it out and wait for those hands to go up, but only a few seconds between points, you got to prepare.
Ed Burrell scored 21 goals in 11 games this year for the Rush. Played the last couple of years with the Vancouver Riptide. Again, Dallas will center to Gibson, who made his season debut in the Roughnecks season finale against Austin with a pectoral injury that required surgery as Mickle launches for Coffin, and it's incomplete. It's the type of shot we didn't see from either Madison or San Francisco last game.
Yeah, the floodgates have opened here. This is a couple of teams that are very comfortable with the deep shot. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a lot more of those.
Stall count was rising on Jarrett Marin. He gets it to Lloyd, who launches, and the only one going deep for Dallas is Thomas Slack.
McKenzie came underneath and Lloyd was saying, why? You had 2 steps.
2 steps and some height.
How have you guys seen when a superstar has a turnover early? Like we've seen Mickle and Lloyd on this point have fairly routine giveaways, clearly bad choices. How do those guys respond to that?
I think for a lot of them, sometimes it's just reining it in. If you're looking at it from a coaching point of view, it's you give those guys a little bit of room to make those types of mistakes. Some of those guys will be pulled after 1, but most, like if you're Jimmy Mickle, you get a little bit more than that.
Longer leash. Here comes Mickle.
Wow, Mark Lloyd calling for a pick, stopped running.
And in the back of the end zone, Gibson keeps it alive, and it's going to be a goal for the Roughnecks.
Well, I mean, this is another example of a player, you know, we saw it in the last game with Peter Graffi just not continuing to play when he thought a foul should have been called. And Mark Lloyd doing the same thing. You got to keep playing. This is a refereed sport. And he just gives up, waits for the whistle to blow. It never does. And that, you know, I mean, that's just kind of a mental lapse.
Pretty impressive concentration there. He made it look routine, but that was nothing. That was too easy.
Yeah, I can show you how to blow that catch if you want.
I don't even know if it matters here if Lloyd continues this play. This is putting right back to the end zone.
Mickle to Gibson.
So far on 2 possessions for Dallas, so they've had turnovers. That's good if you're a Toronto Rush fan here tonight.
You know, it's similar to the South Division title game against Raleigh because the Flyers had chances to break on 3 of Dallas's first 4 0 points in that game. Couldn't take advantage of any of them. And the Roughnecks never trailed in that game. Took a pretty healthy lead in the first quarter, and that's a tough play there. Darren Wu couldn't catch it. Carroll deflected it, and it's caught by Jay Frood.
Just a great adjustment by Andrew Carroll to start. You know, saw the play developing, left his man, made a great play over his back shoulder, and then Jay Frood does what he always does, just come out of nowhere for a huge diving play. But Carroll here, really that was his turnover. It was a bad throw behind the receiver at the wrong angle, and he sees this develop, just can't quite catch it. And Jay Frood on this roster, you talk about guys that you forget to mention, you forget to talk about. He's a real difference maker, and in big games, we've seen him over the years at AUDL Championship Weekend just make jaw-dropping catches.
Usually when you see a guy like Jay Frood with that type of explosiveness, on the other side, it's coupled with bad decision-making and a lot of large hucks. But Jay Frood, a really great player in terms of being conservative, taking care of the disc. Love to see him open up his game a little bit more.
Toronto not looking as comfortable as they need to be.
They have the youngin' out there, Bretton Tan, leading the offense.
There's another young guy, Jason Quinn, was named the Toronto MVP as the Toronto club team won Canadian Nationals last weekend. 20-year-old Quinn. Here's the 19-year-old Tan. Will be 20 at the end of the month.
Toronto team winning it over Winnipeg General Strike, team which Mark Lloyd was playing for.
Longtime Toronto player, but he grew up in Winnipeg, rejoining that hometown team. He said it was really weird to go against a lot of these Rush guys. Burrell to win. That felt absolutely necessary.
Yeah, you know, the good news for Toronto is they're getting a lot of separation. It seems like their looks are fine. They look a little nervous. They're not quite crisp on the execution, but man, lots of separation. And if they settle down here, I mean, they've had the opportunity to be ahead in this game. Down 1 through the first 5 points probably isn't so bad for how shaky they look with the disc.
I don't see too many guys make Dylan Freechild fall over with a cut, but Freechild stumble that Burrell shake free for the assist.
You see the Expos jersey on the right, what they warmed up with, trying to curry some favor from the Montreal crowd.
It's a good strategy.
Yeah, those jerseys look sick, by the way, too.
Yeah, they do.
They look really nice.
Mickle was wide open because Ian McKenzie fell down. Now Mickle comes on the under. Jimmy's got 2 assists already. Now, Matt Jackson is a guy who was so valuable last year for Dallas, mostly as a defender. Down the stretch this season, they've wanted to add some quickness and wise decision making to their O-line, and Jackson has brought that. Laurie finds Mickle. High stall situation. Into Gibson's hands. Jimmy Mickle's like, where was the whistle there? Gibson frees up the scooper to Malachek, who swings it. Toronto made him work for it, but once again, it's Thomas Slack. Second goal for Slack, assist number 1 for Laurie. 72 seconds. The Roughnecks hold.
You mentioned Matt Jackson earlier and making that transition to come over. And first of all, Mickle just juking in the lane. Usually he's a little bit more stagnant. But on Jackson, it's a tough transition to go from defense to offense. And what you see with Jackson there is the ability to read the space that is part of Dallas's offense. He's not doing anything wrong, going to the wrong spaces. He's got great timing. And on top of it, we know he's a workhorse. We know he can get open. And so he's not there necessarily for his throws. He's there to get open, help make the offense flow from side to side. Does a great job with it.
Thompson McKnight, the longtime anchor of this Rush O-line, is the quarterback. And Lloyd wants Harris deep. Second throwaway for Lloyd.
It's going to be a hard run for Harris, too, if he's recovering from a hamstring injury. Hamstring injuries usually happen when you're going at that 100% speed, and who knows if Harris would have been able to get it, but I suspect that he's not going to go and try to strain it at the beginning of this one.
Freechild near the sideline couldn't handle Joel Clutton's push pass. McKnight was fouled.
Contact was called against the defense prior to a throw. Disconnect the thrower, offense up there.
Josh Cooper, Ben Godin, Jason Weddle, and Jim Robinson, the 4 officials for the second semifinal. If you missed it earlier, 23-19, San Francisco over Madison. FlameThrowers awaiting the winner of this one. McKnight just forced to throw it up, and not much Wu could do, running out of space.
That can be a little frustrating as a thrower. You know, the referee's calling a foul in your favor, but you made the throw you wanted to do. You caught the goal, and mentally sometimes it's hard to reset. And it seemed like he was set on making that same throw again.
That situation, you're better off just swinging it and getting the disc moving back into the flow. Matt Bennett lets it rip. A couple Larberg brothers in the neighborhood. Chris made the catch. Gives it to his brother Dylan. And here's Freechild to Frood, and he's in.
Yeah, very physical bid there from Yearwood. Canadian club team sometimes known for being a little more physical, and certainly he was in the mix. Wasn't like he didn't have a play on it, but Colliding into the back of a receiver, very dangerous, especially on these deep shots.
You saw Dylan Freechild's body language there, just sort of pointed. Jay Fruit had the ankle, just go, and he obeyed.
In those tight quarters, all you need is an inch. That's why you see different types of cuts in the end zone. Something that's not viable, not a very good strategy from the start of a point becomes just so dangerous.
Jay Fruit, in the last couple of years at championship weekend with the Madison Radicals. Both Fruit and Coffin joining Dallas this year. Decision they made in the offseason, geographically, it made a little bit more sense, even though the Radicals really wanted them back. It's an interesting what if, guys. What if Coffin and Fruit were on Madison this year? Oh, goodness.
Well, a couple weeks ago in Dallas, we saw Dylan Freechild flipping over the signs. He's getting a little bit more help today.
Neither guy wanted to let go of the disc. As a result, they went tumbling into one of the advertisements.
It's Kai Marshall who got hit in the face, and there might be some blood. Yep. So Marshall will be attended to. Now Marshall didn't have as big of a 2017 season as he did last year when he caught 48 goals. 47 goals a year ago, 27 this year, but the University of Oklahoma product. This seems to be another one of those unsung stars for the Roughnecks. His ability to make plays in the air, especially near the end of quarters, has been a difference maker.
Well, we saw a couple years ago in the San Diego Growlers, and it was Kurt Gibson, Nick Lance, and Mickle, I believe, joined up. And it's not just superstars. It's about your depth. You need that to happen, or else you can put all your stars on offense. You can score a lot, but you need the guys to get the disc and then score afterwards.
And they tap the disc in before Kai's off the field.
And Marshall and the athletic trainers and Patrick Eberle on the field, and there's Stanley Peterson ripping it away. Freechild floating it for Frood. Jay Frood makes the catch. Unbelievable. And now a referee is coming to say it was not caught. And the referees will converse.
Yeah, it looked like he might have bobbled it. He goes trailing edge here with the left hand, kind of an awkward catch. Oh!
That's absolutely incomplete.
Stanley Peterson. Oh, go look up that Callahan video right now. Wait alongside, you'll get more of those plays.
Wow.
Yeah, should have been a right-handed catch.
Now they're going to say it was a score. And the official who had it right the first time is going to have some trash talk with his fellow officials after the game.
That is too bad. I mean, it was a heck of a bid, a very exciting almost play. But it looked pretty clear from the video that he bobbled it.
Let me ask you guys. I think it's possible Jay Frood thinks he caught it. So I'm not sure this is bad spirit necessarily. Any thoughts about that?
I think in this case, I mean, if you're going to go with spirit, this is where you trust the initial call. Because if you don't know for sure, you're not going to have the best perspective. I think that's down. That's absolutely down.
Yeah, it's one of those situations. I think Jacqueline Verjou had a catch like that where she bobbled it, and all you can say is you couldn't have been sure that you caught it. You might have caught it, but you couldn't have been sure that you caught it because you know you bobbled it. If you're the receiver, you know you didn't control the disc.
That pole landed inbounds right near the back line. Connor Armstrong brings it forward. And they're giving him the brick mark. Maybe they're saying it landed on the line. Looked like it landed in.
It's a tough day to be a referee.
A tough first quarter for the Toronto Rush.
Yeah, I mean, there was, again, good separation. I mean, that's the look you want, and they just don't quite execute.
Another tough catch made, Dalton Smith. And his throw under, teed up. Darren Wu gets one back for the Rush. And they work it down and punch it in, looking for the half-field shot to Carroll. Darren Wu, the D and the dime. And a Dallas player, that's Dylan Larberg, shaken up. There's a lot going on right now, guys.
Yeah, what a different game it is than the first game, right? Like, so much happening in such a short amount of time. In the first game, it was just a battle of wills. And the pace of this game is just at a breakneck speed.
Score was like 3-1 in the first game at this point.
Right. It was hard to see what happened on this catch. I don't know if he twisted his knee or what happened. A great D there. So hard to get out in front of that without going through the body. Let's see if we can see what happens. Carroll makes the catch and just kind of an awkward plant.
It looked like a non-contact thing for Dylan Larberg, and he's still down.
And you hope that's not a hard plant and just, you know, it could be a left knee injury, which is not fun.
Dylan Larberg got married earlier this spring. Been a happy season for him. He rejoined the Roughnecks late in the year.
You have the PT there performing the slip test.
What's that?
That's the test they do for knee ligament injuries. But it's common after any of that to go through, and we had a scary moment at Beach Worlds where we actually had one of our players test positive for torn ACL based on the slip test. But turns out with the ultrasound, it was just, he had loose knees.
That's interesting. So he was able, in other words, the knee moves a little bit at the joint, but there's nothing torn, it's just loose.
Hey, Brian, while we have a moment as they figure out Dylan Larberg walking off the field, I talked to you a lot during your Team USA coaching experience. You led the USA Men's Open team to a gold medal in France. A lot of great coaching strategy obviously went into that. You had kind of a subpar roster, I thought, but the strategy got you there. As you continue to gain separation and perspective on that, has your perspective changed, and what are your thoughts on coaching Team USA?
I think it's just, I think back in the moment a lot, and more of just the process of getting to the week. A lot of work was done before getting to that tournament. And what a thrill to work with players that have different abilities, have different points of view, coming from different systems. It's just, it's incredible. It really is nothing like it. I think what's amazing is the guys that we could have taken, and Jay Fruit is one of them, and look how much he's tearing up the field.
Nickel marked by Martin. Here's Laurie.
Really smooth offense. You can just see the progression of where the thrower goes, and if it's not in point A, point B, they go to option C and just move it around.
Tight throws, secure catches, and every once in a while they need to make a tough grab, and they're up to that task as well. Brandon Malachek with the score for the Roughnecks. There's certainly some similarities to this first quarter and the game last year when Dallas gained some early separation. They led 3-0 in that game. I believe we're up 9-4, and they just maintained that lead throughout the rest of the game.
And Chuck talked about this earlier. Toronto's had open shots, especially deep, where they've shot over too long, and that's tough to come out when you need to be, when you feel like you need to be near perfect. That's such an untenable position to have.
Dallas was perfect last year, 17-0 in their first season. Not quite the same standard of perfection this year, Chuck. They lost a couple times to Jacksonville, fell in Raleigh. This Dallas team had to go on the road in the championship game of their South Division, but knocked off the Flyers in North Carolina.
Yeah, I think when Dallas lost the rematch at home to Jacksonville, you know, the whole league had to collectively say, hey, this team is vulnerable this year. So certainly not a done deal, but I would say Dallas is still the favorite this weekend.
I felt like the Roughnecks perspective changed too. Burrell makes the catch, Dan Emmons nearby. There was a pick against Toronto downfield. You know, the Roughnecks went into that rematch with Jacksonville with a great desire to take care of business, and they didn't do so, and they realized they needed a little bit more down the stretch. There's Yearwood, the veteran, for the Rush score to make it 7-4, 39 seconds on the first quarter clock.
Yeah, you know, Toronto doesn't look like they're playing their best at the moment, but the fact that they're playing hard, they're running fast, they're getting open, and they're a little shaky with the nerves, that's more encouraging to me than a team that comes out flat and doesn't, isn't running at full speed, doesn't believe they can win. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a team that believes they can win, and they're a little nervous. This is the team that eliminated them last year. This would be the biggest upset of the weekend, and I think they can do it. They have the right kind of body language, the right kind of mentality. If they get, if they just get some good production out of their players, they've got the kind of firepower that can win this game.
From 4 years of working with you, Chuck, you are the body language guy, and you usually have a pretty good intuition about what you see.
Right, and Toronto is a team that we've seen fold. Sometimes they get in their heads, they get a little bit behind, and you can see the switch go off, and they say, I don't think we can win this game. So it's something, it's something I'm definitely looking for when I see this team, and I got to say, it's encouraging so far.
I think we saw it Toronto's opening weekend of the season. They had a great fourth quarter win against New York, and then the next day they got clobbered by DC. The Breeze played a great game that day and just took it to the Rush. But of course, Toronto got revenge, including in the playoffs against the Breeze. And there's a mistake. Abe Coffin could not make the catch.
A little bit of chirping, whether or not it was meant for Kurt or Abe.
Yeah, maybe Kurt was trying to call him off and he just didn't hear it or something. Certainly Kurt had a little bit of an easier angle.
Well, Dallas unable to punch in the buzzer beater, and the Toronto Rush will receive to start quarter number 2. So a chance for the Rush to gain some momentum. 1 down, 3 to go in our second semifinal, the defending champs with a 3-goal lead.
Early recognition is critical. Teaches middle school PE classes about ultimate Frisbee and cancer symptom awareness.
We're a registered nonprofit that advocates for an active, healthy lifestyle, body awareness, and speaking up if something is wrong.
Skills that when it comes to cancer can help save a life. Ultimate is a fast-paced team sport that's self-refereed, non-contact, and co-ed.
Spirit of the game is the foundation of Ultimate. That means we communicate respectfully, we're fair-minded, and we enjoy the game.
Ultimate is accessible to everyone. All you need is a Frisbee and some friends. Our team of coaches is made up of experienced and passionate leaders from the Ultimate community.
We can come to your middle school and run your PE classes for the day. And if we're not in your area yet, we'll send you our clinic in a box, where we give you the resources to run your own.
We are Eric!
And we want to work with you and your school.
I think the chewing is just, it's just what I do. It gets me in the zone. Like if you see me chewing, you know I'm locked in and I'm ready to play. I think it first happened when I got this one piece of clothing my freshman year at Colorado, and it was just a little too big, and it felt right to just grab it, and then it turned into me just chewing on it constantly, and so now it's just a deep V, and yeah, that's all it is. People give me a lot a lot of flack for it. But I think the hardest part is just trying to get rid of a jersey when you're trying to trade it to someone and they look at it and it's like chewed all the way around the front of it. It's like no one really wants that, you know? So I just kind of have a lot of jerseys laying around that I can't get rid of, but whatever. I like it.
Another guy who can get lost in the shuffle, but Stanley Peterson, look, he's pretty dialed in.
He's ready to go.
Right on cue.
It was for a while, when he burst on the scene, it was just incredible. I mean, you really can't find those plays almost by anybody else that consistently. And then he got injured for a year, and I just wasn't sure he was going to be able to regain form, and lately it's been back to old Stanley Peterson. I mean, really, there isn't anybody else that can make those plays.
Dallas pulling with a 3-score lead. Into the second quarter we go. Do you guys think it's a matter of adjustments for the Rush or just simply execution?
I think it's been a lack of execution, especially in open deep shots. And sometimes when you're just missing in those cases, you have to just slow it down and take what's in front of you.
Lindquist. Burrell.
It looks good. I mean, Toronto, you know, like we've been saying, they look fired up. You know, they look like they're playing at full speed. They're confident in their matchups. It's just some pretty offense from Toronto. They got so many great tools. Veterans like Jeff Lindquist that can just drop this into that back corner, no problem. You know, you flash back to what, 4 or 5 years ago when Toronto was kind of the perennial champion in this league, and Lindquist was right on the edge of his prime. I mean, he was one of those guys that was just stunning to watch, and particularly his throws, the stuff he saw and the throws he would make. It was kind of like you were talking about Ashland Joy earlier. It's like he saw the field so well and read the wind and read the defense and just said, like, here's an opportunity, I'm going to drop it in.
It was horrible to coach against.
Yeah,
you get him in a place where you have a great defensive stop, and all of a sudden Jeff Lindquist solves the puzzle, and it's over.
Well, he talked about the fact that in ultimate, the trend is for the mark to be low. So he learned how to throw high, and that's where all his crazy upside-down tosses come from. Toronto making the Roughnecks work. Squeezing that one in there to Malachek.
And we saw Powell there actually was the one who could have gotten the D, but it would have been a foul, and he did not make the bid.
Well, there's the footsteps of Brett and Tan making a difference. Gibson took responsibility, said he should have had it. A chance for the Rush, who have not gotten a break yet. Jeremy Norden to Mark Lloyd.
So interesting when Mark Lloyd gets the disc anywhere. He's just got so much range that even if he's catching the disc going backwards, he can probably still hit the end zone from right here flat-footed.
He's looking for Powell. Powell can't make the catch.
Powell has not left his feet twice now. I don't know if this is a health issue. Is he nursing a shoulder or what's going on?
I think Lloyd just shaked that one.
I guess, man. I'll politely disagree. That's the second one that Powell at least could have bid for. If you're not going to bid now, when are you going to bid?
Contact on the mark.
Seems like Toronto has settled on the Lloyd-Mickle matchup downfield. And just a couple years ago, it'd really be kind of a pick 'em who's going to win that one. But here, I think Mickle's got the advantage.
Yeah, Mark's such a gamer. He's an interesting guy. Always kind of surprises you in the big moments.
Does Toronto have anyone to throw on Mickle where the Rush would have the advantage?
No one in the world has anyone to throw on Mickle to gain an advantage.
Did they sign LeBron James? Because he could probably take away his first cut.
There's Kirk Gibson. Wide open in the end zone for the Roughnecks. Another missed opportunity. The Rush get a turnover. Could not convert.
Yeah, those are tough. Those are tough.
So Raleigh head coach Mike Denardis is going to join our set at halftime, and I have a feeling he'll say something like, this is exactly what happened in our game. And we had chances, just couldn't convert them.
Yeah, I was talking to Mike last night. So, I mean, Dallas went to Raleigh in the South playoff finals and beat Raleigh on their home turf. Raleigh, the best team in the league by most measures, any measure, really. And, you know, the way he was talking about it, he said they just didn't really play particularly well. He didn't take anything away from Dallas, but certainly didn't feel like he saw the potential of his team that week. So I would love to hear the answer to that question. See if he thinks this is comparable. Is Dallas just intimidating? Is it hard to come out and play your best against a team that's this stacked, or what is it?
Harris looking for Carroll. Toronto needs more of that.
Yeah, Harris to Carroll, man, that is a recipe for success. And you watch Carroll warm up. I mean, you just look at this guy's body. He's all legs. He barely even has shoulders. He's so solid.
Didn't it look like he levitated at the end of this run?
He did. I mean, gravity doesn't affect you if you have no mass. And he just kind of runs this thing down. He's always on his toes. He jumps up and floats through the air.
He moves so efficiently. There are some guys, when you see him run, you know they're fast. And Carroll's just kind of skipping along.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like a guy who's trained intelligently. He hasn't bulked up. So he's super fast, super light, very, very powerful in his legs, kind of like a Joel Schlacken, but even springier.
We saw Carroll and Schlacken match up in that Cross Coast Challenge game, which was a really fun head-to-head showdown between those two guys. And who knows, maybe we'll see it tomorrow if we see a surprise over the next 3 quarters here tonight.
Yeah, that was a really fun matchup to watch. There's a couple guys that kind of have similar builds and have noses for the end zone. The other one that comes to mind is J-Bo, Jordan Huston from Jacksonville. Just a devastating goal scorer.
Toronto has been switching matchups through the beginning of this game, and now we see McKenzie actually switched off from Mickle. Originally, McKenzie was on Mickle.
Jackie Howe's on Mickle, but how about Jonathan Martin on Laurie? Gets the D and then throws the goal. Slatic, the bidding catch for the Rush.
And that's the excitement that this Montreal crowd has wanted to erupt with this whole time. I think the 2 times Powell had a shot at making the catch and didn't make it. The crowd was on the edge of their seats. They wanted it. And they finally got to unload here. This throw, not a great throw, but Slatic goes full bore against the pressure of Jackson, makes the catch, and the crowd here, there's no question who they're rooting for.
A little bit of discussion on the turnover, whether or not it was a foul. And contact after the play.
Yeah, those are tricky Ds because it's coming right across the body. He obviously got the disc first, but I'm not sure if there's a way to protect the receiver exactly in that situation.
Mario Zlatic, first year on the Rush. He needed a bid, otherwise Matt Jackson would have gotten the D right on the goal line.
Yeah, I mean, good job by him to bid, make the catch, and stay in, because it would have been easy to just lay out hard, get the catch, and land out of bounds. He rolled onto his back, somehow kept it in bounds. Not an easy task.
3-1 run from Toronto to start this second quarter.
Just what you needed, and when you need to get going, it's just sometimes it can be one play that sets the tone and changes your mindset.
We've seen Jonathan Martin be that tone setter for the Rush many times over the past few years. The first time that Freechild, Gibson, and Mickle have all been on the field together in this game. And well, Mickle popped it up a little bit. Tan goes up on Freechild for the D.
Tan is something special. He's still so young, and he's got to figure out the game and all the angles and everything, but when it's about making a play, it's simple about going to get the disc. He's got the athletic ability.
It was hard to tell. Freechild might have said something in a respectful way. Hey, nice play, kid. A chance for the Rush to tie this thing up. They trailed by as many as 4. They were down 7-3 with 1:38 to go in the first. Kelly unmarked, finds Lloyd. 8-all. Toronto on a 5-1 run.
And we're starting to see some of that vulnerability from this Dallas 2017 roster. I mean, the prior year they looked pretty much invincible. And this year, I mean, what an awesome play. What an awesome play. And who can blame Mickle for throwing that up? You got Dylan Freechild with steps. You got to give him the ball. And it's just the better man wins there. Tan gets up better. And a great job by Toronto from reversing the field. They had some pressure on the far side. A tough around. And then good patience for Kelly to find Lloyd. Toronto's rolling.
The difference here is that Toronto, their depth is young. They need that confidence boost. They need to stay in it. Whereas Dallas, they have all of that history.
Guys, take another look at Brett Tan's D here on Dylan Freechild.
It's just, I mean, he's sensational. He's able to box out, and Freechild has the angle. It's a bad throw by Mickle.
Yeah, I think Mark Lloyd did a pretty good job of getting around on the mark. Like, he forced Mickle to turn that into a pop-up instead of a tight little shoulder-high bladey flick.
And that's why you see Lloyd on Mickle, because a lot of times you get handler defenders on Mickle, then he goes deep. Mickle isn't automatic on Lloyd going deep, so Mickle's with a thrower and you got the length.
Yeah, on that point, actually, they were shoulder to shoulder, and Mickle came under. You know, got a 5 or 10 yard under. So you know, I mean, what that tells me, if I'm shoulder to shoulder and I like the matchup, I'm going. But if you're shoulder to shoulder and you're like, well, I don't know, maybe not, then you come under and you get the disc.
And usually, like, Mickle's so dangerous there.
Yeah,
he's a fantastic thrower.
Yeah, I would love to see those two guys in the air.
Well, we got a brand new game, guys. Remember, this was the score at halftime of our first game.
That's right.
I think we'll have a little bit more scoring in the second game tonight than we had in the first.
Seems like it. Hey, this is not a pitcher's duel.
Jarrett Marin launches the pull. This crowd has come alive to support a Canadian rival. The Canadian Brotherhood between Montreal and Toronto standing out. Mickle rethought his deep look. Gibson.
Wow, pretty fancy cutting in the lane there by Slack.
He's slippery. So is Jackson. Near the sideline, Gibson stumbled, kept his feet. Daring shot. Are you kidding me? That never got more than 10 feet off the ground, and it snuck over the defense. A sizzling hammer. Now back the other way, and it was a foul. And it will be ruled a goal. Kelly fouled Gibson. Give Kurt the goal. It's like an over-the-top point for the Roughnecks.
Yeah, Dallas has given the crowd what they want, which is some crazy some crazy hammers. Just blades it over the top.
You get the two styles in 1 point. Mickle with the traditional kind of blade hammer. Kurt has always thrown this flat hammer, and he still gets a ton of yardage on it. It's incredible how far it goes, but it's just so flat.
Yeah.
No real arc on it.
It looked like he was throwing it uphill or something. Like, you know, it's like it just never climbed. But it's really a spectacular throw.
We see the best players do things on the field, Ryan, that I think you as a coach would never teach.
Right, and that's the thing, and I think you hear other coaches talk about this. Sometimes you get somebody with an unorthodox style, but if it works, don't try to make them something they're not.
It was a 3-0 run from the Rush. Dallas with a hold to go back up by 1. Toronto has not led.
So they put Fruit on Carroll. That is an interesting matchup. Fruit ain't slow, and he's got some size.
Carroll's taken off.
Carroll says, let's go.
McKnight launching. Carroll's got it.
And you got to wonder what Fruit's doing there. I mean, he released him deep. It's almost like he wants the throw to go up, and it's like, whoa. First of all, wasn't that Cam Harris throwing it?
It was McKnight.
Oh, it was McKnight, I'm sorry. McKnight, a pretty accurate thrower.
How many times have we seen Jay Frood get a D like this? I mean, this is what he does, but he hasn't guarded Andrew Carroll very much.
No, that's right. That's right. See, Carroll isn't bound to the earth the way other receivers are. So he can just keep pressing the button just to go higher and higher.
Half a step short.
Yeah.
It really did look like I saw the same thing, Chuck. Frood looks like he's going to release Carroll deep and say, hey, you going to make this play against me? Carroll says yes.
I don't know about you guys. I could go for a little more of this Carroll Frood matchup.
Oh, man, all day. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see if they keep that matchup. What's Frood's adjustment? Is he going to play him even now? Is he going to play just under?
Well, earlier in the game, we saw Stanley Peterson on him, and that's going to be fireworks as well. I think there's just so many combinations you could go with.
Peterson on the sideline chatting with Dallas assistant Stephen Darrow, who was a player on the Roughnecks 2016 championship team. Patrick Eberle, doesn't get a ton of pub, but he's coached this Roughnecks team to 30 wins in 33 games over their 2 seasons. All 3 losses, of course, coming this year.
The last several points, Lloyd has done a great job on the mark, and it looks like Mikkel's been, he hasn't had to take the shot, so maybe not gun shy, but it's having the effect they want, making Dallas more conservative.
Yeah, because Mikkel's not being particularly effective downfield either. So it turned him into a more or less, a possession handler or something, which, hey, you can get Mickel to be just a possession handler. That's a win.
And Lloyd has done a really good job on Jimmy this point. Dallas continues to possess. This point about 75 seconds long and counting. Well, Dallas shows they can be patient as well. Ben Laurie from Brandon Malachek, 10-9.
That's what we were seeing from Dallas earlier, doing a great job of taking what's given. It's so hard to play pressure defense on a squad where Abe Coffin is almost an afterthought.
Right.
The other thing I like on the field right now, Chuck, is that we see Brandon Malachek and Kirk Gibson playing together after their heated rivalry in college.
Yeah, it's funny.
And I think a lot of people, if you've been paying attention to Dallas, might think of Malachek as just a reset handler, but that guy might have the deepest throws in the game.
Yeah, they're really deceiving. He gets the disc on a reset straight back, and then all of a sudden he just kind of drives forward and just bombs a flick to the back of the end zone. I was actually watching that point thinking, man, if I were a cutter, I would be so happy to play on this team. Everybody who touches the disc has 80 yards from either side.
Brandon Malachek played in the AUDL back in 2012 with a Rhode Island Rampage. He has the distinction of throwing the first pull in AUDL history.
I know that. Cam Harris closed it out on Freechild there. That was a pretty nice catch because Freechild was coming hard.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Darren Wu was out of bounds as he made the catch and got tangled up with Matt Bennett. Chris Mazer picked up. He was unmarked. You don't see that too often. Just a guy totally unaware of where he was on the field. Here's Freechild. Over the top. Zach Riggins had a big layout grab against Raleigh. Made the AUDL top 10. It's after a D. I mean, this Dallas D-line in terms of throwers, Matt Bennett, Chris Mazer, Dalton Smith, Dylan Freechild, Stanley Peterson, and you got Dan Evans and Zach Riggins downfield. I mean, like, you could be a cutter on this D-line too, Chuck, and have a lot of guys who could throw it 80 yards.
That's true. Very dangerous offense.
Emmons is in. The guy they call the Danimal, former basketball player at North Texas. He is an intimidating defensive presence.
Yeah, just such a big frame. good runner, you know. I mean, he's a good athletic guy, and he's just so tall that he bothers. You know, mentally, when you're a thrower and you see guys that size out in the lane, it just makes you not want to throw.
Assist number 3 for Dylan Freechild here in the first half.
Dallas has recovered, staying the momentum here of Toronto with a little bit of patient play of their own. And if you're a coach, that's the way you want it. You want your offense to operate smoothly. You don't like these runs.
Emmons had 17 goals last year. He just scored his 16th of this season. Mark Lloyd out there on offense for the Rush. They're sending Mazzucchelli, and he deflected, and a travel was called back on the throw, so it's coming back to Jeremy Norden. Athletic play by Mazzucchelli to keep it alive. Quinn. There's Mark Lloyd. Past the bidding defender. Toronto's hanging around here, guys.
It's kind of like an NBA game where you just have so many shooters here that you know they're going to score. And this game is going to be won in the second half for sure.
Well, you know, on the couches before we started the first semifinal, I said Dallas was going to thrash Toronto. And it just hasn't been the case.
You stand by it?
I don't know. I mean, maybe the third quarter is always the telling quarter, I think. That's when San Francisco kind of pulled ahead in the last game.
Well, I think the thing that's going to come into play is how does the depth work out for Toronto? Because they're going to have to make some critical passes. And so once Dallas really ratchets up the defense, how does Wu handle all of that? Dallas has been there and done that. They've won a championship with all these guys.
Gibson, greatest sit back inbounds, and it's caught by Mickle. Jimmy Mickle looking deep for Coffin. And Toronto up to the task defensively. But how about that save by Gibson on what I believe was Jackson's overthrow near the sideline?
It's the greatest by the greatest, maybe.
Timeout called by Satch and Reyna, which is perfect because it'll give us a chance to relive what just happened here. As Gibson kept it alive, and then I believe that's the third throwaway for Jimmy Mickle. He had the one early, the one that Brenton Tan got on Freechild, and now here, just a little loose in pursuit of Abe Coffin. Wow, Toronto's got a chance to tie.
This is such a tough play to make, and there's a reason why we couldn't come up with a better name other than Greatest.
Was he up?
It was Malachek who threw it high.
That's the dirty little secret on Greatest. They're almost never able to keep themselves in bounds long enough and in the air.
You know who did it? I think twice on the greatest stage was 4 years ago when Tank Natenberg, who went on to coach the Austin Soul last year, had a couple for Team USA in Columbia. I forget if they were two in the same game or two in that same brief World Games weekend. I never seen, you know, one greatest is rare. To see one guy get two of them in the same weekend was unreal.
I'm going to be Scrooge McDuck for a little bit. Every great catch, every great play comes from a bad throw.
Yeah, but that's why we had fun. It's more fun to catch a bad throw, right? Toronto trying to march down the field. Mazzucchelli wants it all. Cam Harris with his bad hamstring still runs it down. That was fast.
Yeah, Cam Harris just has such deceptive speed. I mean, he's just one of those guys. It's hard to get a handle on what to do against him. He's kind of got awkward releases. He never looks fully engaged, but his speed is really baffling. I mean, he runs away from guys.
I mean, in 2012, he came out and he dominated a couple games, and it was incredible. It was a sight to see, and you start thinking, like, maybe this guy is just going to come and dominate Toronto Ultimate and even just Canadian Ultimate and then the world Ultimate scene. But he's got this talent, and he makes a great play there, but it just feels like he hasn't gone that upper echelon that the way Lloyd did for a while, the way Mikkel has, Kurt, and Dylan.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a personality thing, because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who wants to be the face of something, you know what I mean, or wants to be the best player in Canada. I don't know, just my take. He seems like kind of he likes being below the radar. He likes people saying, oh, you don't have to worry about him.
I think his teammates like the fact that he's below the radar.
Yeah.
Because he can make all the plays. It's interesting to see Isaiah Masekele transform his game a little bit this year too, becoming much more of a thrower. That was a gorgeous shot. Under a minute to go here in the first half. Dallas led by as many as 4. But Toronto has answered Dallas's early haymaker.
Oh, bad read by Masekele there.
And Mikkel takes advantage.
Such a hard position to play when you have a thrower that can put it out. When you're a defender in this case, by the time Isaiah Masekele has located the disc, it's too late. He tries to stop the in-cut, and after that, he's just kind of looking up in the air and hoping that it's going to be floaty enough.
Yeah, that would be actually a pretty fun matchup. If Isaiah gets a good read on that, I would love to see him go up against Mikkel, because Masekele's very good in the air.
What would you guys say is the best part of Kurt Gibson's game?
He is the textbook all-around player. That's the thing, is he doesn't have a weakness. And so when you look at a player like Freechild, you immediately think quickness and speed. And you look at Mikkel, you think size and throws. But Kurt's everything. He really is. And so it's hard to point out just one thing that's really great. But over time is his ability to net. Like in big games, there are times when he's never come off the field. He's played almost every single point.
McKnight throws through the contact, and the refs say that Harris initiated the contact, so he'll go back 10 yards.
That's interesting. I mean, I thought he got fouled on the catch, and he might have gotten fouled on the throw.
Now he's going to cost him another 20 yards. Harris was visibly frustrated, and Dalton Smith claps his hands right in front of the Roughnecks bench.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of on Cam Harris's side. I think Smith was all over him on the catch, and he was just trying to get a throw off without absorbing impact.
And now Sachin Reyna's out on the field.
He's almost, I think he's thrown something on the field, almost a challenge flag.
It's the old orange timeout thing.
And now he'll take the timeout. Just under 30 seconds to go in the half. Toronto has played a valiant second quarter. We'll see if they can close it out with an equalizer when we return to Montreal.
Peterson getting on lay. Round to Kutza, and Peterson with the interception to Jackson for the break.
Dallas putting pressure on the reset and baiting Jacksonville into throwing pucks with guys helping over the top.
Certainly a momentum booster for the Roughnecks.
You see their team charge the field afterwards. They are looking to light the fire as best they can.
Coming up at the half from our studio set down on the main patio here at Claude Robillard Stadium, Megan Tormey will host halftime game day here at Championship Weekend. He'll be joined by Ultiworld's Charlie Eisenhood and the head coach of the Raleigh Flyers, Mike Denardis, and the captain of the Montreal Royale, Kevin Quinlan, former Rochester Dragon when our Brian Jones was the coach.
I see a couple of Dragons jerseys still out in the stadium today. It's a nice reminder.
Makes you feel good? You had fun coaching the Dragons, right?
There was a couple times we almost took one off Toronto. And then, of course, they broke your hearts in the end.
Right. See if they can do that to Dallas today. Of course, this Roughnecks team has never lost a playoff game. 3-0 last year, 2-0 so far this year. Under 10 seconds now. Burrell lofts it to the end zone. And it's caught. Jeff Lindquist made the grab for the rush.
Jeff Lindquist times it perfectly. But if it's not for Mark Lloyd here with the great box out, taking position early on, this throw almost doesn't go up.
Yeah, great job sealing Joel Clutton out of the play. Joel Clutton, number 77 here, had a great read on that, and Mark Lloyd just got in position.
He might have even gotten the catch if Lindquist didn't steal it out in front of him. And Lindquist says, it's okay, I got the goal.
Yeah, nicely done.
You guys both think totally crafty, smart play by Lloyd, nothing questionable about that?
No, that's a great box out. It's clean in the way that he's holding his ground. He didn't initiate contact.
Yeah, I think it's totally clean. I just hate it.
It's so frustrating.
I've always hated when guys do that. Like, play the disc or get out of the way.
There's less than a second on the clock. And Mazur didn't get it off. There was 0.2 on the clock, and this will not count. And it's eaten up by Harris anyway. And
yeah, Harris.
Gentlemen, for the second game in a row here in Montreal, nothing decided in half number one.
Yeah, this is a good problem to have. I'm pretty excited to see the second half. Toronto looks, I mean, the end of that quarter there, the little altercation with Cam Harris, I think, that's the perfect kind of fodder to fire up a Canadian team. You know what I'm talking about? Like, this is a team that likes to get in your face.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's a team that feeds off some of that fire, some of that anger. And if it's only one guy, Cam Harris is certainly ready to play the second half.
And they've been in this spot before. So whereas that type of situation could dampen a team's focus and poise, Toronto, you'd think, has the veterans to be able to handle it.
It's about keeping the young guys engaged and just having fun. For them, they're going to have to make a couple of tough throws in some situations here to pull it out, but they're in a great position, especially when we compare it. Totally different game to last year.
And nothing to lose. I mean, they're not supposed to win this game.
Toronto was down 5 at the half last year against Dallas. We're deadlocked through 2 quarters tonight. The Rush and the Roughnecks even here in Montreal. We send it down to Megan and the gang when we return.
Early recognition is critical. Teaches middle school PE classes about ultimate Frisbee and cancer symptom awareness.
We're a registered nonprofit that advocates for an active, healthy lifestyle, body awareness, and speaking up if something is wrong.
Skills that, when it comes to cancer, can help save a life. Ultimate is a fast-paced team sport that's self-refereed, non-contact, and co-ed.
Spirit of the game is the foundation of Ultimate. That means we communicate respectfully, we're fair-minded, and we enjoy the game.
Ultimate is accessible to everyone. All you need is a Frisbee and some friends. Our team of coaches is made up of experienced and passionate leaders from the Ultimate community.
We can come to your middle school and run your PE classes for the day. And if we're not in your area yet, we'll send you our clinic in a box, where we give you the resources to run your own.
We are Eric!
And we want to work with you and your school.
Thank you, and we are back with continuing coverage of this 2017 AUDL Championship weekend. I'm Megan Tormey, and I am joined by David Gessner, author of this new book, Ultimate Glory, Frisbee Obsession and My Wild Youth. So we're taking a moment, stopping coverage of this absolute barn burner of a semifinal to chat with you about your experiences. First of all, I have to ask, what led you to want to write this story?
Well, first of all, we could call it the wild half after what we just saw. It was pretty exciting out there. I'd written 9 other books, and they were environmental books, and they were books about nature and memoir. And finally, I figured I'd gotten my credentials in line. Now I could finally write my Ultimate Frisbee book. So I got to do it. And, it was fun, and it really, seeing this again brings back memories of the old days.
I have to ask, given your illustrious history, did you ever anticipate Ultimate would end up like it is today, the experience you see here right now?
I didn't, but I see, my wife is a novelist, and she wrote a book. She's written like several novels, and she listened to the books on tape of this book, and she said her favorite line was about, she was listening to me narrate it, and I said, I wanted to win nationals, but I also wanted to lose and drool on the trophy. And there's still an aspect of wildness to the game. Even though it's here on an official, lit-up field and everything, the hucks and the overheads, there's this aspect of like that moment, that wild moment that I still feel like I can relate to. I'm not as good as these guys, but I remember what it felt like,
So despite all the changes that have taken place, the passion still remains?
Despite all the changes, I'm seeing somewhat of the same. Particularly all the turnovers I'm seeing. Sorry.
No, we appreciate that too. Yeah. What do you think is next for Ultimate? Do you hint at that in your book, or do you have a vision given your reflective pause?
I'm a little, I'm thrilled by this, actually. I'm a little worried, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this. I'm a little worried by the, trying to do anything to be in the Olympics. Right now it's co-ed beach or whatever. It's like, do we wear flippers? Do we, we can't contort ourselves too much for success. An illustration in the book is there's a famous period early on where Cuervo tries to, do you know about this at all? Cuervo, the tequila company, tries to make Ultimate the next big thing after they made beach volleyball the big thing. Well, they try, but people are still not willing to wear uniforms, and they're smoking joints on the sideline and everything. So finally, at the end of the tournament, they open the bar for an hour, free tequila, and to Ultimate players. So by the end of an hour, people are crawling over the bar, and the Cuervo guys just roll their eyes and go, they're not ready for prime time. And D. Rambeau, who's an Ultimate friend of mine, he just said, if we can't sell it to a tequila company, who can we sell it to? Now, obviously, we're light years beyond that now, but I just want there still to be some aspect of it, like, like an example would be skateboarding, or, something where we keep a little bit of the yeehaw, balls out, wild experience, even as we're getting more successful.
Well, I really appreciate you taking a moment to look forward with us, and appreciate you taking a moment to help us look back with your book, Ultimate Glory, Frisbee Obsession, and My Wild Youth. David Gessner, thank you so much for taking a moment to talk with us.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to meet you.
See ya.
All right. And now I shall be joined by Kevin Quinlan, player of the Montreal Royale, Mike Denardis, coach of the Raleigh Fires, and Charlie Eisenhood, who is the knower of all things Ultimate, the Ulti-World editor. All right, let's pass these around. Good to go? They're good to go. All right. Wow, what an absolute amazing first half. I'm not sure if this is going the way any of us projected, but Mike, I want to start with you. I feel like going into this, Toronto was the underdogs, just given the resume of all of the players on Dallas. How would you, when you matched up against Dallas, pick your matchups to give you the best shot at winning?
I mean, Dallas has supreme athleticism. They have amazing throwers, and you have to try to exploit some of the liabilities that they have. But, when their top three are performing well, you're probably not going to have much of a chance, right? Even in our game, Kirk Gibson didn't have a stupendous game. He had 7 turnovers. I mean, this game, he's got, I think, 40 touches and 0 turnovers, right? Jimmy is kind of gone the Kurt route this game, and he has more turnovers. And you know, you have a couple liabilities on one side or the other of the disc, but the guys that, you know, those top three, Dylan, Jimmy, Kurt, they perform. 2 of them perform, you're probably in trouble. So right now, I mean, Toronto is clearly showing that they have the ability and wherewithal and experience to stay with them in spite of it. But, you know, I think right now the performance of 2 of them are, you know, the 2 of them are doing well, and that probably still gives them an advantage going into the fourth quarter.
That's an interesting point. They're top performers performing well, and yet Rush refusing to go down. Kevin, your experience matching up against Toronto, what does Toronto have? What are they showing that's enabling them to close the gap that they dug for themselves in the first quarter and answer back the way that they have?
Right, I think it's, especially this year, it's a combination of the veterans and then the influx of all these youth guys who are so athletic, and just riding on those veterans and making sure that the athleticism of the youth really comes through. It's really, really cool.
Charlie, I want to pitch this question to you because you are so good at seeing the big picture. We've seen some ebb and flow from both sides. What do you project going into the second half?
Well, I think it's really critical that Toronto was able to punch back after going down and then giving up the goal, the break to Jay Frood. Even though it was a trapped catch, as we saw in the replay, that was an opportunity and a situation where Toronto last year maybe just folds. You know, they went down big and then they folded. Instead, they get 3 breaks in the second quarter. They come all the way back, and they have some belief now that they can win the game. The thing is, I think if Dallas cleans it up on offense and Jimmy Mickle plays better in the second half, they're going to win. But I think Toronto has a real chance to win. Obviously, it's a tie game, but they have also competed. You're seeing Cam Harris and Andrew Carroll and those guys performing at a high level, especially Isaiah Mazzucchelli, should mention him on the D-line, has been amazing. I think if they can continue to play as well as they have been, and Dallas doesn't clean it up on offense, they're going to win the game. I mean, I think they have shown that they are capable of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question, and then we should get ready for the return of this half. Mike, imagine you are coaching Toronto right now. Clearly they went down, and then as Charlie said, they were punching back appropriately to get themselves back in this game. How do you ask them to continue to outperform the people who we think have the capacity to take it away, the Dallas Roughnecks?
I mean, even if you think your team's at a talent deficit, you still, I mean, you obviously see they have the belief that they can win. And they've shown it in the first half. Dallas punched them hard, and they punched right back. And, you know, it seemed like Toronto doesn't go away in these situations. And, you know, that's what I try to preach to our guys, regardless of the talent gap. And, you know, we like to think we don't have much of a talent gap anymore, but in situations where you don't think you're at that, you know, you're at a little bit of a deficit, that belief is really key to win these games.
I take that back. I do want to ask one more question to Kevin, just because it seems like of all of the teams in the AUDL, Montreal has the Toronto Rush's number the best. At halftime, if you guys were ever down but then came back, what was going through your minds that enabled you to play better against a team that on paper was slated to win?
Right, yeah, for us it's really about being present and in the moment and not worrying about the result. It's just at this point, how can we score? What's the next pass? How can we get open? That's it. That's all our mindset is.
Well, we'll see who is more present in the second half of this incredible semifinal. Thanks so much for joining me, Mike DeNardis.
Thanks, Megan.
Charlie Eisenhood, Kevin Quinlan. For all these gentlemen, I'm Megan Tormey. Thank you for continuing to watch our coverage of the 2017 AUDL Championship Weekend. Stay tuned, the second half is about to start.
Welcome back upstairs to the booth. 12-all is your score, and the Rush and the Roughnecks are about 45 seconds away from kicking off this second half. Gentlemen, I'm I'm not sure what the difference is going to be. I think Charlie and Mike and Kevin made some really good points about Dallas's talent and Toronto's mentality. And here we are, and it's about being in the moment, and it's about enjoying it.
And that's what the message has to be for Toronto. The young guys are going to have to make some pivotal plays. You can't rely on just all of this experience that Dallas has. It's going to be tough. It's going to come down to a couple of key possessions where Matty Sang would always talk about these moments. Team USA coach, coaching Fury forever. And you would say you get done with a game and there's 3 or 4 moments that really determine the outcome, but you won't know it until you're done with it. And so it's hard to say here at 12-12. You would have thought with Jay Fruit's catch that was down, that could have been a mentality killer for Toronto.
Yeah, I think there's kind of an 8th man on the field in this game, and it's this crowd. This crowd really wants Toronto to win, and you can feel that, man. When they're on the edge of a goal, the crowd is dying for them to score. And I think that might come into play as the day gets long.
It'd be pretty nuts if at the end of the weekend we look back and say, you know, those Expos jerseys that they were warming up in, that was a huge difference maker for the Toronto team.
Made them look good, made them feel good. You got the crowd on their side.
When the Rush knocked off DC in the East Division title game, Isaiah Masick-Kelly's dad came down to the field and handed him a Montreal Expos hat and basically presented it to him and said, hey, you're going to Montreal, you deserve this. And the entire team got Expos gear here in Montreal earlier today. Dallas on offense. Familiar 7 out there, Mickle and Laurie. Freechild, though, gets the start to begin the second half offensively in the place of Thomas Slack. Mickle floating it to the end zone again, and it's through the grasp of Laurie. Credit Masick-Kelly for closing the space.
A lot of times these blade hucks are going to work for Dallas, and they have the athletes to go up and get it in case it's a bad throw. It's not what you design an offense to do, though.
Yeah, it'd almost be better if Mickle, instead of sitting down and just putting so much pop on it, if he just kind of threw like a hard blade over the shoulder of the defender.
Over the head of Brett Tan. And after Laurie's easy interception, he hammers to Abe Coffin for the score. So a missed opportunity there. The Rush could have taken their first lead of the game. Instead, they never really get it past the quarter mark of the field. And Abe Coffin, the former Radical, with, believe it or not, his first goal of the day.
That throw really picked up. McKenzie released it low. It was not a throw intended to go that high. Those mistakes drive you crazy. They really do as a coach, because it's so frequent with young D-lines, with young players, where it's wide open, you have the opportunity, you just have to execute. And sometimes it's harder than being in the flow of the game and having tighter defense.
Freechild staying out there to play D. Be interesting to see how many points he plays here in the second half. It's Yearwood with McKnight, Carroll.
Vert stack for Toronto.
Darren Wu comes underneath. Burrell, Harris, and Lindquist also out there on the field.
We got to see Toronto earlier in the year, and when they got into a little bit of trouble against DC, this is what they came to, was that vert stack, as Chuck pointed out. They were able to get some easy goals with Carroll kind of sitting in the middle of the stack and at some point just going deep.
Travel. Ben Gaudin, who is based here in Montreal, an official for Royale games, on the mic. Looks like Slack may have gotten a slight fingertip on that throw, but it did get to Yearwood. See Freechild's quickness and closing off the break lane there. Lindquist does get it around to Burrell. And the pressure from Freechild may have gotten to the veteran Lindquist.
I think so. That's a tough matchup for Jeff.
Now McKnight is on Freechild, and this disc Slack's open. Can he get it in bounds? He tries to greatest it in. That was an incredible effort by Thomas Slack. Referee ruled that he leapt from out of bounds and the disc was out, but goodness.
Wow. That's a key call right there, because even if Slack was down before he released the disc, if he touched it before, the disc should be all the way up there, and that's why you should try to make that play if you're on offense. Always try to touch the disc. Otherwise, you end up with a 50-yard disadvantage.
Yeah. 55, 60-yard difference there. Here's McKnight.
Sure looked like Lindquist was using his hands to get open there.
And they called it against Lindquist.
Yeah, I think that's the right call.
I mean, it's been a number of calls already in the beginning of the second half. Either the referees are trying to set a tone, or we're seeing a lot of ticky-tack.
Timeout called. Stall count was coming in at 5. Goal per minute in the first half, guys. 12-12 through 24 minutes. Here we are, 3.5 minutes gone, only one score. Is that a matter of defenses tightening up? Have we just seen a couple execution errors? What are your thoughts on how these teams have come out of the gate here in the third?
Both teams are starting a little bit slow with execution errors. The one to Lindquist was just seeing footsteps, really, thinking that Freechild's going to make a play on it, and that's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah, Toronto for pretty much the whole first half, I thought, had pretty good energy. A lot of, like they're running hard, they look pretty fired up, and they definitely look a little bit flat at the moment.
Like at the Rush sideline, trying to get the crowd into it, trying to create Dallas into a supervillain. I mean, that's basically what the goal is.
Well, yeah, Toronto and Montreal might have a rivalry, but they both hate America, and we can all come together on that, I think.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Carroll misreleased on that forehand intended for Yearwood. And then Mazer, I believe this is going to be a foul going back if it's not caught. But it is caught. And then Gibson, another flat hammer to the end zone. It's Dylan Freechild. Proud Ego alumnus of the University of Oregon.
Oh, it doesn't have to be pretty to work.
That's true. Basically the slogan for all three of us. Off Marshall's hands, and Gibson right place, right time, and under one of those very smooth hammers. Got word that Dylan Freechild changed his cleats at halftime, and now it maybe looks like he's changing back.
I really want to just acknowledge for Dylan, he's had a reputation for having antics for a number of years. Came into college, was a very fiery player, and it's been great to see him mature the way he handles himself off the field and even on the field. He still kind of has those antics, but in this case where it's flipping signs, I think it's great. I think it's entertaining.
Looking for Lloyd. Trailing defender was Lewis, but Lloyd went up for it. Jackie Howe, back to Martin.
That's big. That's big. And, you get Mark Lloyd downfield, just have him make an aggressive deep cut. Get the ball in the hands of your stars. Sometimes that's how runs start. Sometimes that's how you get your team fired up. And you were saying in the first half as well, Brian, just that, they have younger guys. They kind of need to borrow some confidence from these vets, from these stars like Mark Lloyd, and then they can get rolling and you'll get production from your younger guys. But at the beginning of half, sometimes the nerves are there. The younger guys don't quite know how to get in, and something like that helps.
It's just tough, and as Kevin Quinlan said at halftime, be in the moment. Be in the moment as much as you can, do what's next. You have so many distractions, especially in a professional setting. Sometimes the crowd can work in your favor, but I always enjoy being the team that they're rooting against.
Mark Lloyd with a flick pull from end zone to end zone.
If I'm Dallas, I'm loving the evil umpire.
Yeah, I think with guys like Dylan and Kurt, these are guys that don't mind when people are upset with them. They might actually play better.
Laurie plucks it with a left paw and then launches, testing Lloyd. Mark Lloyd gets his hand on the disc.
Always been a star. He's always come up big in big games, and nothing new here. I mean, he just finds a way to make the play.
Feels like that's what Toronto has wanted to do. Get that matchup downfield, and now Martin airing it out. Looks like it was intended, though, for Abe Coffin, who was in the best position to make the play. Little too loose on the break opportunity.
It's always what's dangerous of throwing a huck back towards the middle of the field. It's where all the defenders are. Unless you've seen the receiver clear the deepest man, hanging up there is dangerous.
Good cut downfield by Abe Coffin, but Mechanix didn't have a lane to get it to him, so he continues to retreat into his end zone. Gibson, another hammer, and Slack didn't expect it. Martin selling out for the D, and he may have hurt himself.
Yeah, it's hard to blame Slack for pulling off that cut. I literally couldn't have imagined a throw that would get there, and then I forgot there's this double helix upwind beach throw that Kurt likes to throw in big games. That probably would have worked.
You know, he did get a hand on it.
Yeah.
And then he looks back and says, did I really have to do that?
Yeah, that's the worst feeling.
Andrew Carroll came on the field to replace Jonathan Martin. McKenzie gets the reset. Zlotich. Mario Zlotich, a guy who's tried out for the Rush in the past, didn't make the team, persevered, and he led their team in Ds during the regular season.
And this Mark Lloyd, Jimmy Mickle matchup is pretty fun to watch.
You could just ISO, just watch those two guys, but then you might have missed Brett Tan's score to tie it up at 14-all. That's a break for Toronto. 2 straight for Dallas to begin the quarter, and the Rush rally back.
Yeah, you know, thinking back to some prior Toronto Rush teams that have underperformed in big games, I can't help but think that switching to head coach Sachin Raina might be part of the reason that they're steady, they're showing up, they're prepared, mentally they're ready to play. And look at this D from Mark Lloyd. I mean, there was essentially one tiny inch of a window that he could make a D, and he found it, he made it. And I just think, you know, Raina as a player was always so steady, and just his persona, he gives you confidence. He makes you feel like we're fine, everything's fine, let's just keep doing our thing. Here's 2 quick things to think about, ready, break, let's get back out there. And it's, I mean, you need things to be simple, kind of like you were saying, let's just stay in the moment. He makes it very easy, I think.
And that's what's so tough is how do you design a defense that's complicated enough for Dallas not to shred it, but simple enough that you can communicate it in that 5 seconds you have between points.
Scott Hasty, still the general manager and assistant coach of the Rush. Coaching hurt. He injured his foot. In his words, celebrating a string of breaks during their win against DC. And he's got a scooter on the field that he's been riding around. Here's Matt Jackson elevating in the end zone for the goal. Scott Hasty, though, joked kind of sarcastically, but there's probably some truth to it, too. He said, Sachin Raina promoted a head coach because we've underperformed the last couple championship weekends. And we need a change of voice at the top. And I think you're right on, Chuck. And it's not necessarily about Hasty's not doing the job, it's just about changing the voice.
No, not at all. I think that's absolutely right. I mean, when you look at all these different players and all these different teams, basically what you're trying to do on a team is just find the best way to get production from whoever you've got. You don't get to choose who lives in Toronto or in that area, but here are the guys, here are the good players. How can we use them the best? That's not an easy problem to solve. But it helps when you've got guys like Scott who just say, look, man, whatever helps the team. I'm here to help the team, whatever I can do.
We talk about coaches like they're these beings that have every single skill, and just like a player, some coaches are going to be master motivators, some are great tacticians, some are great at game management. They're going to bring different things, and you're still going to see Hasty's mark on this squad.
Riding around the scooter, he reminds me of Oregon Fugues Bethany Kaler riding around at College Nationals in Cincinnati in 2014. She was out with a broken foot, originally from Cincinnati, hometown, celebrating on the scooter. Let's see if Toronto can run off some holds here when they need them.
So a late call there on the travel.
It's just been a couple of ticky-tack calls here, and maybe there was the travel there, but Toronto not getting the calls here to start the second half, that's for sure.
McKnight gets it to Yearwood, and up the line, Carroll milks it into the end zone. Guys, we got just under 16 minutes to go, and if Toronto's going to win this game, number 3 is going to have his fingerprints all over it.
He's going to have to cross over to the D-line as well. I don't think that Toronto can sustain the pressure they're going to need to force Dallas into many mistakes. Really, it's been Dallas. I think that's been their own worst enemy. And don't get me wrong, sometimes that can be taking away credit from Toronto. They played pretty good defense. But when the turns are coming from a throw that doesn't need to happen, and we've seen Dallas over and over again, when they stay patient, work through their flow, move the disc around, and score with seemingly ease, it's one of those things where Dallas just hasn't had to be tested as many times, potentially. And they usually get away because Bickle is going to be on with those blade hucks.
Good pull from Toronto. They hustle down quick, and then Gibson gets the 20-yard gainer to Coffin. And all of a sudden, they're at the brick mark.
Well, and how about, we haven't seen Dallas. You said they haven't been tested. When they were tested, they failed. When they've been in close games, they've lost those games. When they beat Raleigh in the final, it was a super impressive game, but they whooped them. So it'd be interesting
final
to see.
difference was 3, but they were in control the whole time.
Right, yeah, that game wasn't in question.
It's like the UConn women, who never faced a close game, and when they lost to Mississippi State, it was because they didn't have that game management.
Yeah, mentally that is not easy to do, to get into a close game when you're used to winning, maybe against a team that you were, in quotes, supposed to beat,
Different matchup on Mickle McKenzie.
Wonder who will be the Morgan William for the Toronto Rush here today. If that last-second success exists in one member of the Rush. Here's Gibson connecting with Slack. Doesn't seem like Thomas Slack gets tired.
It's a good thing for Dallas. And this is kind of back to that dump swing offense. I wonder if Toronto is trying to give just a different look, put Dallas into different modes. Lloyd seemed to have success on Mickle, and so it's weird to me why they would make that decision. And it doesn't mean that it's bad, but don't try, as a coach, you try to resist the temptation to try to do too much fiddling with what's working. If it's working, don't try to explain it. Just keep going.
Just take credit for it. Move on. It's the old Bill Belichick strategy.
Just the 3rd goal for Slack. It feels like he's got 8 goals, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's been everywhere.
Center to McKnight. Darren Wu chased by Jay Frood. Darren Wu's a guy who's had the flair for the dramatic in the past. Junior Worlds.
Has ice in his veins.
Is that in Lecco?
That was in Lecco.
He caught the game winner, correct?
He did. On Universe. And how about that? With some pizzazz, Darren Wu to Ben Burrell.
Young Bucks are feeling good and making it happen for Toronto. they've got to keep that mentality going. Guys are making plays, no need to talk about it, just keep doing it.
Yeah, just keep letting that momentum build, play loose, let the crowd carry you. You know, I mean, plays like that really bring the crowd onto the field. Just watch this throw.
Several of his teammates have said Darren Wu is the type of guy who likes the spotlight.
Oh, no doubt. He looks very comfortable out there. That throw was an interesting throw. I mean, that didn't really look like most people's high release backhands.
It just sat. It was really nice. It's hard to get spin on that. Freechild's a big master of that.
Yeah. It's almost like they hold it up above your head and then literally flick their wrist. A lot of guys, when they throw a high release, it's kind of like they just toss it up above you. Well, there's something different about their mechanics.
It's a subtle difference between a high release with spin and then the lift, which is you kind of start releasing it early on and throw it with a different grip.
Yeah, much harder. Sorry, the lift is much easier, I should say. The lift is way easier.
The lift, though, doesn't work so well in the wind when you don't put any spin on it.
Or in games. That's the other time I've had problems with it.
Under 2 minutes to go here in this third quarter. 16 all. Dallas and Toronto. San Francisco awaits the winner. 1 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, Sunday afternoon here in Montreal. At the 6th AUDL Championship weekend.
Back with Lloyd on Mickle, Massick Kelly.
And it was Slack who stumbled. Mickle will get charged with, I believe, his 5th throwaway in the game, and Toronto has a chance to take its first lead of the night.
Very critical possession for mentality purposes.
Toronto has already taken 1 timeout, so they don't want to use their final timeout of the game here. Martin testing Jackson, and Matt Jackson gets the D.
Just a horrible throw from Martin. Threw it wrong-footed, wasn't even in bounds. Just a mental lapse from the vet.
Gibson throws through the contact. They continue on to Slack and Malachek. Mickle again, who has been hassled by Lloyd.
And the difference is in the mark. Lloyd's not trying to pressure every single spot on the field. He's saying, Mickle, go ahead and get the disc. And Mickle just, I don't know that he's confident when he sees Lloyd on the mark, because he still has a throw.
Lloyd comes in for the poach. They were looking for Laurie, but Lloyd read it. 7 seconds in the half, and through the bump, it's caught by Quinn. Martin goes over the top. This will count, and Toronto takes the lead. What is it about the end of the third quarter in the second semifinal and championship weekend? Last year it was the crazy 80-yard put from Will Chen, and here the Toronto Rush score with no time left to take their first lead of the night.
Yeah, there's something about playing under the lights here on Saturday night at AUDL Championship weekend. You just get the best out of guys. And look at this sequence of plays. And Martin, after a tough sequence earlier, drops this in for the goal with no time.
That wasn't as pretty as Will Chen's throw to Matt Russell, but it gives Toronto a lead as we take the turn for home.
And Toronto feels like they got some bounces going their way, probably for the first time this game.
How will Dallas respond? We'll find out. 3 down, 1 to go in the second semifinal. San Francisco awaits the winner, and the Rush will receive as we start the fourth. Toronto by 1.
Early recognition is critical. Teaches middle school PE classes about ultimate Frisbee and cancer symptom awareness.
We're a registered nonprofit that advocates for an active, healthy lifestyle, body awareness, and speaking up if something is wrong.
Skills that, when it comes to cancer, can help save a life. Ultimate is a fast-paced team sport that's self-refereed, non-contact, and co-ed.
Spirit of the game is the foundation of Ultimate. That means we communicate respectfully, we're fair-minded, and we enjoy the game.
Ultimate is accessible to everyone. All you need is a Frisbee and some friends. Our team of coaches is made up of experienced and passionate leaders from the Ultimate community.
We can come to your middle school and run your PE classes for the day. And if we're not in your area yet, we'll send you our clinic in a box, where we give you the resources to run your own.
We are Eric.
And we want to work with you and your school.
Toronto 17, Dallas 16. And the rush in front after Mark Lloyd read the play. You're going to see Lloyd peel off Mickle downfield for the poach right about here. And then not the prettiest of possessions, but a disjointed buzzer beater. It still counts.
Yeah, it looked like a foul on the throw by Powell, played through it, and Martin eventually scores this one. What a difference a year makes, man. Toronto looks great.
You know what? There wasn't a real sense of urgency from Dallas there after that turnover.
Kind of a state of shock. That's the hardest thing, is just when you get in these moments, if any team can go through lulls, and it just has to be a reminder from the coach, from an emotional leader, you have to run through the play. And we saw that a little bit from Toronto on the other side of things, like on the greatest attempts where everybody, for some reason, doesn't realize a Frisbee can float and stops running.
Right.
Those plays matter.
They do. I think, I mean, you know, we talked about how the close games Dallas has been in this year, they've lost to Jacksonville. And, you know, I think this team definitely has some quit in them. Dallas is the kind of team that could fold.
Earlier today, they were the team that was going to thrash Toronto. You just never know. You just never know.
Don't listen to me, by the way. But, you know, it's interesting. I mean, Dallas basically has a chance to rewrite the script here.
And this is still a Dallas team that is 30-3 in 2 years in the league.
Yeah, not exactly losers.
They haven't come from behind that often, but they have done it a few times against Atlanta earlier this year, for instance, on the second day of a back-to-back. They also came back from behind in both their games against Jacksonville, which they ended up losing, but especially the home game, there was a huge deficit overcome. Toronto can punch this in, though. Dallas will fall 2 behind. And a laser from McKnight to Harris.
That is a big goal by Toronto to come out and say, not only did we score the last goal of the third quarter, but we're punching it in the fourth quarter too. We're not intimidated. We're ready for this moment. We're going up 2.
There are hidden plays in every single game that you're not going to go back to. And really earlier in this possession, we're going to see Toronto score, but earlier in the possession, Jeff Lindquist had an incredible read and an overthrown in-cut, where he should have been catching it, arms outstretched, coming underneath. Instead, he had to adjust, turn around deep, and keep the possession alive. And a younger guy doesn't make that play, but Jeff Lindquist, with his experience, does.
There's got to be something about Toronto's body language on the sideline. I mean, you saw Remy Ojo, who's not on the active 20, and he was as excited as anybody. This Rush team is fired up right now.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, you forget how much of a team sport this is, and even if you're not playing, you can add a lot just by keeping the sideline up, bringing positivity to your teammates. If a guy's got his head down like Cam Harris, say, hey, shake it off. I know that was whatever, something happened there. Shake it off. We need you. And he's back in there catching a goal in the fourth quarter.
It's an emotional game. It's a game of runs where when you lose focus, you can use help. Whether you're the perennial champion and Kirk Gibson, it helps everybody.
Coffin looking for Mickle. Lloyd defending. Mickle's got this one. Go Gadget legs.
Man, that was sick. Mark Lloyd took a great line on that. I mean, that's a huck to the break side. So as a defender, you're totally unprepared for this. And he adjusts, closes, gets good position, and Mickle shows you why he's, you know, potentially one of the greatest deeps in the sport. I mean, this was not close.
How much fun is that matchup, and how much fun is this game?
It's fantastic, and you see the bounce house in the background. The kids are having fun too. I don't know if Beagles was able to get Weston in there yet.
I'm sure her boy was over there if he's not still. That's a big time grab from Jimmy Mickle. Just turned 26 years old last weekend. His sister Christina also turned 26 last weekend, his twin sister. Dylan Freechild likes to remind everybody that he gets to trump Jimmy because Dylan's a triplet, Jimmy's only a twin.
It'll be interesting to see down the stretch if Toronto continues to trust these young guys. Maybe somebody like Wu still on the field because we know he loves these moments.
Burrell's not going to get there. If there is a small weakness in Andrew Carroll's game, it's perhaps his throws every now and then lead to turnovers. And Alex with a chance to knock this thing back up. Roughnecks do have a pair of timeouts. We'll see if Patrick Eberle pulls the trigger. See Eberle's walking down the sideline, trying to be close to the referee. The Roughnecks get into a tough spot. Freechild sending Chris Larberg. Darren Wu trailing. Larberg with the catch. These Dallas guys playing with some purpose as well.
So that play, I think, gives you a little bit of an appreciation for the D that Peter Graffi got in the last game. You know, Darren Wu basically has to invest all his energy in running to get into position for this D, and by the time he gets there, he's running at full speed. He's not ready to jump. It's very hard to close all that distance and then get ready to jump. Graffi's so good at doing that, and there's a lot of guys that have the athleticism to get there. They read the disc well. They've got good hops, but man, it's hard to put it together the way Graffi does.
He is. Graffi is one of the best in the game because of it, but one of the reasons, too, that's not going to work out is Larberg has great positioning on that catch.
But Graffi, though.
How about the throw from Freechild? Wasn't too bad.
It's pretty good for a triplet, I mean.
Devin or Dustin could have, he wouldn't even have had to jump. All right, 18 all. After a Roughnecks break, 9.5-minute game. Brett and Tan trailed by Jay Frood, and Tan goes up and gets it again. He got hammered by Frood. And thankfully it looks like Brett's all right.
That's what's so tough on these contact plays. The initial contact's not the problem whatsoever. I mean, Jay Frood's trying to make a great play here. It's just afterwards as you come down just on the back of the heel. You know, a lot of people, they don't like physical contact in the upper body because it feels violent, but really, those are the plays I don't like.
Yeah, it's probably safer to get hit in the shoulder or something than to have somebody roll up your back.
Tan needs some help to get off the field, which is an unfortunate sign for Toronto. After his catch, though, the Rush will have it on the goal line. Yearwood checked in. He'll have the disc. Quinn, Martin, Lloyd, Armstrong, Powell, Massac Kelly on the field.
Man, I really like Yearwood's game. I just like the way he sets that up.
What specifically about the way he embraced that situation?
Well, I mean, he ended up throwing it to the open side, but it felt to me that the reason the open side was so open is because he could have destroyed around there. I mean, he set that up so well that he had a good opening look to the break side, and the defense basically just has to commit at that point.
When you get at a point as an offense where the marks and the downfield defense are covering the same space, it's game over.
Right.
And that's what happens when you have great break throwers. All of a sudden, the downfield defenders are saying, I need to guard both sides of the field. And you can't do that. It doesn't matter who you are.
Right. And Yearwood can break that mark. And that's the problem. So you can't, there's no safety for you.
If you just joined us, where the heck have you been? Dallas led by 4 in the first quarter. Toronto came back, tied it up at the half. We were tied until the very end of the third quarter when the Rush took the lead at the buzzer. Dallas got a break back to tie it up, and they're looking for a hold here to give us another 19-all tie here in the second semifinal in Montreal.
Mickle getting it under again.
Laser, slack.
And there, so that's that same around flick break that he's trying to get off of Mark Lloyd. Mark does enough to bother it to the point where he doesn't get the throw he wants. And that's at least the third time we've seen Mickle throw that turnover.
And he was open there, and so it's not and especially with Mickle, it's not a bad shot, but we've seen Mickle holster a lot more.
Oh, Jason Quinn. He was the MVP at Canadian Nationals last week, showing why. Massa Kelly looking for a 2-score lead. Mike McKenzie's got it.
Yeah, you know, you're right. I think Massa Kelly's throwing has really taken a step up. And that was a powerful step around backhand shot, very accurate. You know, not a lot of risk on that throw. And that's something you didn't really see him do much of maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
He's been so valuable for Toronto's D-line in the second half of the season, being the gunslinging quarterback after return, kind of the way Eli Kearns does for San Francisco.
Yeah, he sees the field well, and I mean, that is a really nice throw. He uses his legs, gets out really wide, and makes a high percentage throw. And look at this catch. Superhero.
There are times when you design teams in certain ways where your superstars aren't going to shine as brightly, where you put Isaiah Massakelli on the defense, and throughout this game, he's been matching up against Kirk Gibson, and Gibson still touching the disc, still moving it, so you're not acknowledging the presence that he has. The fact is he's limiting Gibson better than anybody else can, so it's somebody else's job to get the block.
Yeah, he's playing two ways. That's a really good point. He's playing a really tough assignment on D.
The Dallas Roughnecks. We'll see how they handle this adversity, trailing by 2 with 8 minutes to go. Fellas, it seemed preordained that we were going to have Bo and Cassidy against their old team, Dallas, San Francisco, especially with the way the Roughnecks started this game. And now, with 8 minutes to play, might be Mark Lloyd, Isaiah Massakelli, and Andrew Carroll against the Bay Area tomorrow. We'll find out.
I kind of love this look, and the reason is it's been 3 straight points of some of these guys playing. They come out with a junk look that just forces Dallas to have to work it for a while. It helps Toronto regain their legs when they can probably not provide as much energy. And you're also seeing some D-line players on the field, and when you do that, you throw a zone, they're not used to moving the disc as quickly.
And a call Zlotich for the contact, just an inadvertent collision there. Free child with the disc. Guys, we talked a lot last year about in the moments of adversity, would Dallas play as a team and who would take over the game? I mean, this is when they had Jimmy, Dylan, Kurt, Bo, Cassidy, Mazer, Laurie, Peterson, etc. It's a little bit of a different situation now, but you could ask that same question.
Right now what you're seeing is, I think, a team playing very cautious. They know they can score with unders, but it's going to take 2 minutes of dump swinging it over and over again.
Yikes. It worked out. Jackson, the free child. Gibson's throw was a little dicey, but not the first time Kurt has got one of those dicey throws to work tonight.
Right, and then the other hand of that, too, that possession took 2 minutes off the clock. If you're Toronto, you've got a 1-point lead. If you perceive a talent gap, which I don't think that Toronto's going to here or care about that, you limit the game here. You're up by 1 with only 6 minutes to go. You can make sure your O-line's well rested. They haven't played in a while. You have the energy to run somebody both ways if need be. And this is a type of instance where does Toronto trust the young guys to get the job done in offense? Because if they don't, moving Mark Lloyd to offense would make total sense right now. Carry that lead. You have a 1-point lead.
Yeah, put all your chips on O.
You can trade and win this game.
Right. That's a great point.
Guys, not sure if it's anything serious, but Mark Lloyd for Toronto is currently on the training table getting his left foot, ankle, shin area looked at. Keep an eye and see whether it's just a stay loose type thing or whether he's not out there for the next D point. And there's a critical error for Thompson McKnight, intended for Darren Wu. Dallas with another chance. Oh, goodness. I believe that was Riggins who threw it away. Here's Yearwood.
I don't know what the right time is to do that, but I'm definitely thinking about pulling over Mark Lloyd to play, and maybe possibly even Isaiah Massakelli to play O for the rest of this game.
Lindquist sneaks it through, and that'll work. Another goal for Ben Burrell. Dallas falls back behind by 2.
That is a gutsy throw by Lindquist. I mean, that is not easy to hit. It's kind of right through that little narrow corridor on the break side of the stack, and he just dials it in, makes the throw.
Lindquist definitely isn't the fastest anymore. He's not the most athletic where he was in his prime. But this is what experience counts for.
4 goals, 3 assists for Ben Burrell. Mark Lloyd is still on the trainer's table. No number 89 out there. Marin, Mazzucchelli, Howe, Martin, McKenzie, Quinn, and Tan.
Toronto.
Well, now it's Powell on the table. Lloyd is standing up, but he's behind the bench.
Toronto hasn't used Jarrett Marin as much in this game, I think because of matchups, but he's a real difference maker with his deep holes.
It's a great point. Martin chasing Laurie.
Crowd was hoping the deep shot would go up to Laurie there after his double cut.
Hey, Brian, if you're Dallas, are you worried about the clock right now? Is that something you're thinking about?
I think it's in your mind because as a coach, it's going to factor into your substitutions because from here on out, there's no reason to play your depth. It's play the lines. They're going to go ahead and get you the block.
Malachek resets for Gibson. Under 5 minutes we go. Here in the 4th quarter, San Francisco victorious over Madison earlier today, 23-19, awaiting the winner of this one tomorrow.
Nevin, I think it's a great question about difference maybe in play styles, but I think I'd be really surprised here if Kurt just doesn't put himself on the field after this 0 point.
Nothing doing downfield right now for Dallas. Just reset after reset after reset.
Break the mark a couple times, and now Malachek on the doorstep. Jackie Howe did a great job shielding off Coffin's cut.
Yeah, this is some real red zone defense from Toronto. I mean, look at that. Literally, they just said, hey, can you take this?
Martin, does he have the legs? He does, but there's a stoppage way back behind the disc, and Mike McKenzie of the Toronto Rush is getting stretched out by Thomas Slack.
What a sequence of events. I mean, can we talk about that? Have you ever seen Kurt Gibson just hand the disc to a defender before?
Not quite hand, but he did in the in some big championship games. He had a drop, and it's happened before. Everybody's fallible. I think the one thing I'd like to mention here is just this team's really young for Toronto, and there's a time period where all of a sudden you get the confidence to play great defense, and you can start shutting down everything the other team's doing, no matter how talented they are. And I think Toronto just feels that way. They feel unbeatable right now, and that's an incredible feeling. And if coaches knew how to achieve that, they just push the button, and every single team would play at their best.
Don't you wish there was a button?
Kind of like the easy button, yeah. Play better button.
Mazzucchelli and Mark Lloyd are in the game, by the way.
It's a good sign for the Rush. Lloyd's got it. Jackson chasing him. Around for Mazzucchelli. Martin. Howe.
Dallas needs a stop here.
Got to get that disc off the sideline.
Somehow Martin, through the smallest of spaces, makes the grab for the goal. How did he do that?
I don't think he knew it was coming. I think he just looked at the last minute and said, kind of one of those ask and you shall receive moments. Oh, he read it all the way. Just Abe Coffin doing a little bit of face guarding, and that's what's difficult is you think you have the guy covered on the up line, plays pretty good defense, and it's just a space throw. There's no way Coffin thinks that that's coming up.
Yeah, just a head scratcher on D. But I mean, we're on the brink of the biggest upset in the history of the championship weekend. Has there ever been one this big?
let the conversation begin.
This is something.
Their largest lead of the game at 22-19. They fell behind 7-3 in the first quarter, and since then, guys, 19-12 has been the Toronto run.
And a delay of game called, so Toronto has to pull from the back of their end zone.
Getting a little too excited, and then when those moments happen, even though you're excited as the coach, you're telling everybody to be quiet so you can call the next line.
Mark Lloyd still rifles about a 80-yard flick down the field. This is go time for Dallas. They cannot afford another giveaway. See Freechild directing traffic, telling Frood to cut. This looks like kind of the universe line for Dallas with Mickle, Frood, Freechild, Mazer, Gibson. Freechild will make that grab on the crossfield hammer from Mickle. Two-score game with 3:11 to go. Dallas gets one in just 25 seconds.
And let's talk body language. Look at this. This is the team that just scored. Compare that to when Toronto just scored. I mean, these guys look dejected. They look exhausted. They look like they're feeling the pressure of this moment.
It is a pretty incredible contrast.
It is a pretty incredible contrast. They've got the star power to win this game, no doubt. But I think they're feeling the weight of the moment they're supposed to win. And all the pressure's on them. It just doesn't, I mean, look at these guys. Do these look like happy soon-to-be champions, or do they look like guys that are hoping to get out of here?
Well, right now you have Dallas throwing that universe line, and if you were wondering about whether or not Lloyd would cross over to the offense, it's looked like the answer is no, and they're going to ride the young guys here.
We'll see if Toronto gets broken here, I would guarantee that he'll be on the next O-line point. But save him for D if you can keep this offense, which has been working well for the Rush here in the second half. Yearwood needs something. Oh! Dalton Smith almost had the D on the under. Harris took off. Burrell sent it. And Harris got it.
That's, I mean, you think back to the end of the first half when Cam Harris was upset, a little bit in his head, feeling kind of negative, and then he's catching a goal that might be the backbreaker. Wow. So Cam Harris makes the catch against pressure and then just takes off deep.
You see that sometimes. If your defender has gone all out for that underneath, they're probably not going to be able to go all out for that next deep cut.
Right, just don't let them recover.
And I know this is a tough call, but I think I would. Lloyd's your best experienced player. You want him on the field on offense, fresh and ready to go, and you're still throwing him out in the D lines when you're up by 3. Shows a couple things, shows great trust. I love this call too here. 2-3-2 zone by Toronto. You have to bleed. You have a 3-point lead. Bleed out the clock.
And Jimmy's going deep.
Freechild puts it. Powell chasing. Mickle read it and caught it. Through the zone. Dallas still scores in 25 seconds.
It's not the optimal shot, but it's the one with the time remaining you have to take.
Well, yeah, Mickle's got to step.
Right.
We got 2.5 minutes in a 3-goal deficit. You got to put it.
Right. I don't think this one goes up when you're up by 3.
Roughnecks took a timeout. We'll keep it here. Evan Lepler, Chuck Kindred, Brian Jones, our entire AUDL crew here in Montreal.
Speaking right now, I mean, look at these huddles and just think about being in these moments. If you're Dallas, you're trying to go ahead and ignite that fire. If you're Toronto, you're keeping those good feelings going because those young guys, you give them some time to think. They'll destroy themselves.
Right, keep it light. Light and polite, guys.
As we always say.
Let's have some fun out there. Yeah, this is a big moment. I mean, Dallas doesn't only need to get a break, they need to get it fast.
They still have time here. I mean, it's just get the first one. Don't think about getting two, obviously.
One thing we haven't mentioned all night tonight is the fact that, yes, this Dallas team is 30-3 in 2 years, and they're a juggernaut. This Toronto team entered tonight 72-10 all time in the AUDL. Jordan-esque 72-10. They have won a title before. It was a very different league in 2013 without a South or West division. But the Rush, I think unquestionably, tonight would be the biggest win in their franchise's history if they could close it out. Mark Lloyd told me yesterday that his dad, Rob, couldn't make it to championship weekend this year because he's flying to Dubai on Monday, but he's certainly watching his son. And Darren Wu shook free. Somehow he's wide open deep, and Carroll tacks on another for Toronto. Rush back up by 3 with 2:05 to go.
Oh, man. This is incredible. How easy did that look?
Roughnecks scored in 25 seconds. The Rush scored in 19 seconds.
Frood thinks he's going to prey on some simplicity there by the offense after looking off Wu. Not going to look back for the bailout.
Darren Wu came to play tonight.
All the young guys came to play tonight. Burrell has been incredible. Win.
Brett Tan.
There was thoughts that this could be, you're seeing potentially the age out of the old Toronto Stars.
And yet it's not like they don't have Yearwood and Lindquist and Martin contributing. I mean, there's still Thompson McKnight as well, but it definitely does feel like a new guard is taking control, led by Carroll and the guys who just turned 20 or about to turn 20.
I mean, they really don't have time to do any of this. They need to throw to the end zone.
Coffin rifles a backhand looking for Free Child, and it's knocked away. Mark Lloyd with perhaps the game clinching D for Toronto. And he's shaken up.
Yeah, hopefully it's just a cramp. Looks like a calf cramp. That's Mark Lloyd. He's easy to overlook in the grand scheme of the sport, but he is just a premier player, and in big games and big moments, you can just count on him to make plays like these.
I mean, there was the podcast out there where Lloyd mentioned that he's thinking about moving on from treating Frisbee like his job, and so this may be the last weekend we really see peak Mark Lloyd. He's certainly making it count.
The grind of being a top-level Ultimate player does wear on you, and it's honestly one of the things that makes what Bo Kittredge has done even more astounding, because you talk to guys like Lloyd, who is 27 now, and over the last decade, he has treated Ultimate like his job, and he's become one of the top players in the world without question. Battled back from an ACL injury a couple years ago.
Toronto just has to keep this disc alive. Just throw it deep when in doubt.
They call the stall against Norden. Timeout. No, wow, a timeout called by Reyna. Clutch call from the coach. Toronto will keep the disc. We'll take the timeout too. Just over a minute to go. It's looking like we will not see a repeat champion in 2017. Toronto's got the disc and a 3-goal lead. Despite the arguments from the Roughnecks. You talked about the different characteristics of coaching, Brian. One of them is managing the game. And in the AUDL, that means being in charge of timeouts on the sideline. And you think back a couple years ago, San Jose and Madison in the final. Tim DeBile was debating whether he should take that timeout. Last year, at the end of the game, they tried to take a timeout. This time they grant the call to Satch and Reyna. Norden goes up the line for Connor Armstrong. Under a minute we go.
Just such a hard position to be in as a defender. You're trying to take risks, but that leaves other people open. And now Toronto can just move the disc backwards.
The body language of the Toronto sideline versus the Dallas sideline, incredibly telling. Clock stops with about 30 seconds to go, but it's academic now, and we can start to analyze the reality that the Dallas Roughnecks will not be the AUDL champions in 2017. That honor will go to either San Francisco or Toronto. And on one side, you'll have Bo Kittredge going for his 4th consecutive title. On the other side, the Toronto Rush trying to win for the first time in 4 years. The last time Bo didn't do it. Frood couldn't make the catch. The clock will stop with 6 seconds to go. But that will just about do it. And I think a lot of Ultimate fans around this continent are stunned by what we have seen. Toronto was down 4 early, but the Rush stormed back and dethroned the defending champion Dallas Roughnecks. 24-21, Toronto takes it.
Takes a lot of guts to leave your young guys in late. And Evan, you've been touting the depth of this Toronto team all season long, and it's paid off in a big way. We talked about Carroll, we talked about Cam Harris, but Burrell's my MVP for that game. Then you have Lloyd and Isaac Masekeli, guys who have been studs.
Yeah, if I had to pick an MVP, I'd take Lloyd. I feel like he really makes a difference. He sets the tone, and at the beginning of the second half, he was the one who got it rolling for them. 2 big plays right at the beginning of the second half. He is just a guy that I feel like you can't possibly overrate him.
A lot of what Mark Lloyd did showed up in the stats, and perhaps many of those stats are Jimmy Mickle throwaways.
Right, and that's such a, think about how hard of a call that is. You have a superstar in Mark Lloyd. This is what every team dreams about being able to do. Put that superstar to defense, get those breaks, get that ability, get that intelligence, get that experience. But then you're always worried about that offensive line. And today, Burrell is the reason why Mark Lloyd can go and play defense. Wynn is the reason why he can do that. Wu is the reason why you have Isaac Masekeli over there, and you're not just putting all of your veterans on the O-line.
If they didn't have Darren Wu and Ben Burrell, then it's probably Lloyd and Masekeli on offense. But as you said, they get these couple of Vancouver imports. They're able to put a couple stars on D, and consequently the Toronto Rush, despite the disbelief of the Ultimate World, on their way to Championship Sunday. And the men of Dallas, we certainly hope all Texas Ultimate fans are safe this weekend in the pathway of Hurricane Harvey. But the Toronto Rush with a storming performance tonight. The Roughnecks took an early lead. They were up 7-3. Remember that drop at the end of the first quarter? And then Toronto received to start the second quarter. That got them back within 2, and they just kept clawing their way back. Some dicey moments, but the Rush victorious. And Chuck, tomorrow we got San Francisco and Toronto.
Yeah, that'll be some kind of game. San Francisco. I mean, you think back to the last time Toronto lost in the final was to San Jose. It was to that Bay Area team. They're going back to the final against another Bay Area team. A lot of the same faces. And I think if you're San Francisco, you've got a little bit of confidence. You've got some history beating up on this Toronto team. However, in the club scene a few years ago, Toronto ended the season of San Francisco's club team. A good rivalry in place.
Final score, Toronto 24, Dallas 21. The Roughnecks are done. We'll have continuing post-game coverage on AUDL.tv/live and the AUDL Facebook page from our studio game day set down near the field. But for now, on behalf of our entire crew, we say good night from Montreal, San Francisco, and Toronto, the two teams that advance. For Megan Tormey, Chuck Kindred, Brian Jones, I am Evan Lepler. Good night from Montreal. We will see you tomorrow for the AUDL Championship game between San Francisco and Toronto.